Hi, folks. Robert Quigley here, Washington, D.C., the Money Pit Group. As you know, we're on the road to the White House. Today, we're going to talk about voting, popular votes, the Electoral College, a few quirks about the voting system, how we're going to deal with the technicalities of voting and getting to the White House. But first, let's begin with a little bit of history. I'm going to drop a link in a video titled The Top 10 Most Third-Party Independent Presidential Candidates in U.S. History. That's very informative, and it paints a backdrop in terms of our current project, what we need to do, and how we're going to do it. In American history, there were 26 independent presidential candidates. 10 of them had a really good chance of making it to the White House. But that video that I referenced titled the top 10 most successful third-party independent presidential candidates goes through that in some detail. But here I just want to reference it. George Washington, believe it or not, was the first and only independent candidate elected to the presidency in the United States. Not only was he elected once, he was elected twice. George Washington did not believe in political parties. We'll come back to that. Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican elected president. Andrew Jackson was the first Democratic elected president. Now, if we cast our minds back to the times of their elections, they started out and they had no idea how far the Republican or the Democratic Party was going to go. In a sense, they were independents of their day, or they were at least new parties of their day. And they faced many of the same issues that we're facing today. They were newcomers on the field of politics. How in the world were they going to put their agenda before the American public, and how were they going to get it enacted, and how were they going to better the American country and its people? So here we go. What are the voting technicalities that we're going to follow to get to the White House? Well, we need to look at the voting in two different ways. We have a popular vote, which we can look at nationally, but we really need to look at it state by state. And the popular vote by state is the first step to determining who gets the Electoral College votes for that particular state. And then, of course, once we figured out who's won the popular vote in each one of the states, then we can figure out who's got the most Electoral College votes. Now, as a quirk of the population differences, the popular vote per state can produce one result as compared to the popular result for the whole country. Not really an important point in this conversation, but I think ultimately the real fact is only 10% of the U.S. elections have diverged from the popular vote. We'll come back to a couple of details in just a second. But let's talk about the Electoral College. The Electoral College, as we all know, is 538 votes, basically one senator and two representatives per state. And the District of Columbia is given three simply because the law designates that the District of Columbia gets the minimum as compared to every other state. So if the other state's minimum is three Electoral College votes, that's what the District of Columbia gets. Now, if we look across this group, what we see is 48 of the 50 states have a rule that says the popular vote winner gets all the Electoral College votes of that state. Only Maine and Nebraska differ. And then in 33 states plus the District of Columbia, there are faithless elector laws. Basically, the electors in those states cannot go against the popular will of their electors. That was something that Donald Trump tried to use to overthrow the 2020 election. But that's not really the purpose of this video. Really what we're doing here is just understanding the basic differences between the popular vote and how it works and the Electoral College and how it works. So we move on to the next step in our analysis. And let's talk about the mathematics, because the mathematics in a strong three-way race become very interesting. So let's run through some examples. Obviously, if you got two candidates, a Republican and a Democrat, whoever gets 51% of the vote, or call it 50.0001, say 51% of the vote, they're going to be elected president most likely. But in a strong three-way candidate race, let's say that an independent gets 35% of that state's popular vote, and the Democratic candidate gets 33%, and the Republican candidate gets 32%, or switch them around if you like. Well, in that case, the independent candidate is going to win that state's popular vote with a mere 35% of the popular vote. But he's going to get that state's electoral college votes. So let's look at another example. Let's say the independent gets 40% of that state's popular vote. Democrat gets 30%, Republican gets 30%. Well, guess what? The independent candidate gets that state's electoral college votes. And then, of course, another example would be 50% for the independent, 25% each for the Democratic and Republican. And again, the independent candidate gets that state's electoral college votes. So what we see, the conclusion here is in a strong three-way race, an independent can win that state's electoral college votes with as little as 35% of that state's popular vote. Now, this is extremely important because 50% of the electorate does not vote. They feel disenfranchised. They feel like their needs and wishes and desires are being ignored. They feel like and think that if they elect somebody to represent them, Washington's going to do nothing for them. It's just a complete waste of time, which is not true, because if they elect the right candidate, like our independency, they will be taken care of. So essentially, in a three-way national race, the mathematics that's needed to get to the White House is very different than in a two-way race. And in some ways, a strong independent candidate has an easier time getting to the White House, and at the same time makes it much more difficult for both the Republican and the Democrats to actually achieve success. So, in a nutshell, what does an independent candidate need to do? Well, an independent candidate, we must put up practical solutions to problems. We must put up efficient solutions to problems. We must use common sense policies that benefit the most people possible. This translates into larger voter turnout. It translates into an easier White House win. So essentially, a strong independent candidate in a three-way race terrifies, horrifies both Republicans and Democratic status quo. They can't win with a strong independent candidate. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the independent battle strategy that we're going to use to win the White House. First and foremost, we must get out the vote. 50% of those voters in the middle that are independents that basically don't participate, as many of those folks as we possibly can, we need to get them to the polls. You know, in Australia, they have like a 98% turnout, and their political arena and structure looks much different than the United States. Turn out the vote, first key. Second, we must avoid group polarization politics. The third point, one of our signature programs is going to be to create 30 million new entrepreneurs across the United States. I've created a whole video on this one topic. Those 30 million entrepreneurs are going to wind up helping 60 to 90 million people. It's going to strengthen our counties, our cities, our towns, our states. This is the gold standard, folks. By creating 30 million new entrepreneurs, we take our economy to a much higher, stronger, healthier level. We increase the comfort and satisfaction of folks all across the society. The next point on our battle plan, we're going to create basic health care, including mental health care. The basic health care that I'm talking about is essentially the family practice level. We're not talking about Medicaid. We're not talking about Medicare. We're talking about universal, basic, minimum health care. You got a fever, go to the doctor, figure out what it is. You got a rash, go to the doctor, figure out what it is. What's the bump on my side? You know, all the basic stuff, all of the preventive care types of procedures, all of the specializations. For the moment, we will let private insurance cover that. Number 5 on the battle plan, we have to conquer global warming issues. I've devoted other videos to this topic in detail. We have to control the CO2 and methane gas in the atmosphere. We have to create a sustainable society and economy across the planet, but more will be said about that later. Number 6 on our battle plan, all student loans are going to be bankruptable. When student loans were first created, they were bankruptable. And then, of course, the misers and most stingy amongst us decided it was unfair for poor people who had no other way to go to college, should not be allowed to go get a worthless college degree that they couldn't earn any money from, to spend the rest of their life slaving away, paying for that worthless education. Folks, this is not America. Businesses come and go all of the time. One cannot expect success in every single endeavor in life. But just because we fail in one of our endeavors, and in this case, a poor education financed by student loans, does not mean we should monetarily enslave that person for the rest of their life. So one of my first programs is we are going to put student loans back into the category of a bankruptable debt. Number 7 on my battle plan, Wall Street is going to be reformed. We are going to close the gamification and the casino ship of Wall Street. I know Wall Street. I've worked there a couple times in my life. It's one of my ongoing projects. I'm no idiot to Wall Street. I know what's going on. I know the games that's being played, and their days of a free hand in this economy and of gambling and casino ship is coming to an end. I guarantee it. No longer are they going to be allowed to fleece the retail and inexperienced American public with their financial games. Wall Street has a very important role to play in the American society, but the one thing it's not going to do is it's not going to take the money out of the pockets of our fellow citizens. It's there to create wealth and to help companies grow. It is not there to be enriched because of gambling activities. I'll come back to Wall Street. They'll love me. Responsible gun ownership. Folks, I completely agree that civilians in this country should be able to own as many guns of whatever description and size and caliber and strength that they want. It makes no difference. America needs a strong defense. The civilian population is the foundation of America's strong defense. American gun ownership is not going anywhere. I mean, we hear pundits and legal heads all the time trying to say that guns were never meant to be absolute. Look, the bottom line is guns are absolute. They are so ingrained in the American psyche, culture, and foundation of our country that any attempt to do away with them is only going to cause a civil war. I am all for responsible gun ownership. And that's where we have to evolve a little bit. We mandate that the military keeps their guns and aircraft and ships and nuclear weapons and all the rest of it under lock and key and guarded. We expect our police all across the country to keep their weapons locked in their proper places. You want to own a gun, you have to responsibly secure that gun, no question about it. This is like anything else in society. If you're going to own something, you've got to take care of it. You got to take care of it properly. So although I am 100% for gun ownership, I'm also 100% for responsible gun ownership. And of course, having said that, it goes without saying that we must have a strong military. Without a strong military, America is basically squashed, toast, divided, and completely done. And we're never going to last into the centuries to come. There's so much trouble coming down the road, and the only way we're going to survive it and deter aggression against the United States is for the United States to be heavily armed. I've created a few videos on this. Go look at them, and you'll get a deeper understanding of what I'm talking about. Okay, we're up to number 10 on my list. We're going to trim the law book to increase prosperity across the United States. The whole lawmaking process has gotten out of control. Even back in colonial times, our founding fathers were warning that the country was going to be in massive trouble by the continued creation of crime after crime after crime, law after law after law, because in reality, if you've got a trillion and one laws in your law book, really and truly, it's impossible for anybody to live a life as a law-abiding citizen, technically, because there's just too many laws. And you know, we've got laws that have created many monopolies across the trades, the professions, the cities, counties, villages, and states and country. We need to rationalize our legal system and bring it under control. No question about it. I'm up to number 11. Don't worry, I've only got 12 points to go. Up to number 11. My administration, we are going to squash the drug trade. I'm talking about fentanyl. I'm talking about heroin. I'm talking about cocaine. I am coming for these people like the most wicked person on this planet. We are going to eradicate this extreme, deadly drug part of our society. Pot, on the other hand, give me a couple days, we're going to legalize pot. That's not in the same category as fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. So let's be very clear about that. There is no reason why citizens across the U.S. can't sit in their home and smoke pot or eat pot, however they like to take it. It makes no difference to me. But that's totally different than fentanyl, which takes a drop to like kill your whole neighborhood, and heroin, which you take once and you're going to be addicted for life. And then, of course, cocaine, which is pretty much in the same category. That's going to happen. And then finally, point number 12, folks, we have learned in the last 150 years through detailed, heavy international trade that one of the best ways to keep the peace, to promote prosperity on the planet, make the lives of our citizens and everyone across the planet better, is to knit the world together. And we're going to do it in the form of a very narrow jurisdiction world government. As the creators of the world government, of course, we'll probably have the first presidency in the world government. We will locate that government here in Washington, D.C. As an architect of anything, there are lots of advantages for being the first at the table and being the driver of programs, and in this case, a new world order. America's already at the top of this new world order with our allies, but we are evolving as a species. We are evolving as a country. We've got global problems that need global solutions. Peace and prosperity works much better if we can bring the world together. I know it sounds very 1960s, very John Lennon and all the rest of it, but really and truly, we can achieve this. I'll make another video on that topic. I've already mentioned it in one of my original videos, so have a look at it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, push the subscribe button, add your comments below, join the conversation, spread the word. We've got lots of work in front of us, and until we meet again.